everybody, it is Nerdicane and I am in the Nerdicave. I have a confession to make. The House of X and the Powers of X, while I have been picking them up, I really haven't been reading them. And I realized that I sort of have kind of a letdown syndrome of X-Men books over the past... I thought about this last night. Over the past couple years, I've seen X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue. I was kind of hopeful of a return to greatness for the X-Men series, and then Red and what was the other one? Black, and they just went through all these silly colors of X-Men books, and none of them were really ever any good. They put Cullen Bunn on X-Men Blue, and he is more of a horror writer, and they kind of put this guy who likes to write horror and is good at writing horror on a mutant book, and it never really... I was trying to like it. I was trying too hard to like it. And it just got to the point where I got to about issue 10, and it did a crossover with Secret Empire, and I was just like, when it did that, I was done. I was like, I don't want to be involved in this. I don't want to be invested in this at all. So I kind of walked away. I was hoping Red would be good, and then Tom Taylor just, virtue. He basically just, like in the old Westerns when the cowboys have like double pistols, he just grabbed like double pistols of virtue signal and was just blasting away in random directions at all times, and that turned me off of that. And then we sort of realized that, well, we got the announcement that Uncanny was coming back, and we were all excited. We were hoping that this would be a return, once again, another return to prominence for the X-Men. And they put Matthew Rosenberg on it, and Matthew Rosenberg... I don't know what Matthew Rosenberg is good at writing, but it's definitely not an X book. But, fast forward to now, and these Hickman came out, the Hickman X-Men came out, and he's basically got Powers of X and House of X. And if you ask me, it should be one story, because as they do in this book, they give you this reading list of the book, like where you should, like what order you should read these books. Well, I don't see... That doesn't really make sense to me. Why not just make one X book and do that? But I've finally gotten around to reading this, and I've kind of been popping in and out, but I haven't read a lot of these books. I own them, but I haven't read them because I'm so used to being let down by these books. So this is a cleanup job. And I'm kind of excited. I'm starting to get a little excited for it, and I'm going to start reading the books that I bought that I didn't read yet. This is definitely a cleanup job of the X-Men. The X-Men can be great. I don't think they're broken in 2019. They were used as symbolism for, the downtrodden, people who'd been discriminated against, and people who were misunderstood in society. And, now that we've gotten to 2019, the mirror of racism and segregation doesn't really work, because very few people who are alive reading comic books remember that time. We didn't come out of that time. So that's part of why I think the X-Men sort of spun their wheels, because they didn't really know what to do. They've always been... I've always felt them as symbolically like an oppressed people, misunderstood people, as well as the way that they resonate with the audience. Me, back when I was a teenager, they sort of resonated with teenagers, because we as humans, every human goes through this weird change of your body, and the X-Men do that as well. But I'm getting a little too big-brained on that, but let's get back to this. This is fixing a lot of things that people did with the X-Men in their short runs that kind of fouled up the X-Men and just made them uninteresting, basically killed off every interesting character. They killed off Xavier in AVX, and then they killed off Cyclops in Inhumans versus X-Men, and then they just kill off all these characters. But they've sort of... I'm interested to see what becomes of this. The X-Men, as they are now, are sort of united, but they're almost a cult. There's a cult-like scene later in this book, but... They've discovered a way on Krakoa with 5 mutants who are basically just, B-list mutants. They were never really big-time mutants. They're not Omega-level mutants. And the cool thing about Hickman kind of figured he could put all these together And with just a little bit of tweaking in their powers, they created this guy. He used to just create these balls that were bioorganic in nature, and he could create a lot of them. And then Hickman's kind of come along and said, okay, those, they didn't know it, but those are eggs. And then Mr. Sinister had a repository of DNA from a lot of mutants, because that's what he did. And they're doing with that DNA and with these eggs and with these certain mutants, they're sort of giving a rebirth to all of the mutants who had died in the past, who were significant mutants: Cyclops, Jean Grey, Archangel, Angel. They're fixing. This is what this is. I guess this is a long series that's intended to fix the mess that other writers who were either unqualified or not interested or just the wrong choice were doing. So they're on Krakoa, and they're using these eggs to bring back long dead mutants. That's what Professor X looks like now, by the way. I didn't know exactly who he was, but let's skip some pages for the copyright gods. But they're re-giving birth to these X-Men. He's setting up the tools, and this is what Hickman's doing. He's setting up the tools for a much bigger X-Men run that he's going to be in charge of writing. Now, Marvel being Marvel, they're doing what they do, and they're getting something good. They're grabbing onto something good, and they're just going completely apeshit with it. Now, what they're doing is they're giving an X book to Teenie Howard. I'm sure Leah Williams will have an X book. They're spinning off, instead of having this one gem of a book and letting it breathe and letting it grow and let it gain popularity, and then you branch off with an X-Force. You then branch off with, a UK or a European X-Men team. Instead of doing that, they're taking the little sprout of this new line of X-Men books, and they're expecting it to grow fruit. And that's not how plants work. I've been working in the garden a little bit, but the X-Men now and on the island like this, and now they're part of what this book is they become a nation in the UN. The UN has voted. They said, okay, we recognize Genosha as, Krakoa, Genosha as a nation, and this is part of what the setup is. Like I said, building the tools, gathering the tools so he can have a good run, and all the while Marvel is like undercutting by saying, oh, this is exciting. By the time your third issue comes out, we're going to have 7 X books going, and hopefully, they'll fade away. You put Teenie Howard on an X book, and it's just going to go away really, really fast. Teenie Howard did like half of a good issue of Death's Head, and then beyond that it's just absolutely awful. But this is the part where they're bringing these newly resurrected X-Men back, and they're kind of showing them that they've been resurrected to all these mutants on the island, and it has just this feeling of a cult. And so these are actually the X-Men. So it turns out one other thing that Hickman did in tweaking the lore of the X-Men, Cerebro not only was something to amplify Xavier's telepathic abilities of mutants, it was also a machine that was gathering copies of once a week, it would gather a copy of the psyche and the mind of each mutant that it was in contact with, that our Xavier could. And that's what they're using. They're using the information from Cerebro. So they bring back we'll use Cyclops. So using Cyclops' blood, they're bringing him back. They're using 5 other mutants to expedite the process. And then, you would say, okay, that's not Cyclops. That's not the real Cyclops. That's just a clone. It never had a childhood. It never had teenage years. It doesn't remember the early days. But so they fix that by you getting the copy of Scott Summers' head and putting it into this new shell. And then, they said that's always part of what the tweaking of the lore is. They've said that that's always what Xavier intended Cerebro to do, with a little asterisk right there. As long as the asterisk means as long as Hickman needs it to fix the X-Men. But I recommend this. And like I said, I've kind of stayed away and I haven't read a lot of these, but reading this one, taking the plunge, I need to read up on the whole thing. This is actually from a veteran, talented, interested writer. And you don't see a lot of that in Marvel anymore. You know, when you see them giving like 6 books to Leah Williams, and I picked it. This is an alternate cover. I just picked this up because I've always liked Magic. You know, I've always liked how she's very attractive. You know, she's like a young Russian blonde, but she is also tormented, and that's sort of why I like this cover. Has nothing to do. She's not even in the book, in keeping with true Marvel style. But yeah, that's all I got for this one. I give it a recommend. Yeah, I'm probably gonna go back and read those. I need to go back and read all those books that I've been buying and not reading because I was just scared to be let down again. But hopefully things are looking up. This is actually legit. This is my legit opinion. Things are looking up for the X-Men. Hopefully this will be, the Hickman run will be the run that fixes it, despite Marvel trying to, you know, hamstring themselves. But that's all I got for this one. I'm in the Nerdy Cave, and I gotta I'm going to thrift shops to kind of to see if I can find a bookshelf or a shelf to put the Xbox there so I can play some Xbox. But my art, I'm starting to break out the art out of the boxes and out of the storage, and I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put that one yet. Maybe over the TV, maybe over by the desk. But yeah, this is what I got. This is a big recommend, and you guys start picking this up. There's not a whole lot going on. I guess DNC is doing the buy cut of Marvel. I've been doing that for weeks, I think, and I've just been cutting back. And he's doing it because of Zoe Quinn. I did it because they keep putting just untalented writers, untested, unproven writers on a lot of books. But yeah, go get this up. And yeah, I'm kind of cutting back on Marvel, but hopefully I'll go get some more alternative. That was actually fun. That was a fun read. But go check out my review on Red Koi too. But hit a like, hit a subscribe. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna be back on Xbox soon. It's Nerdicane. My gamer tag is Nerdicane. So God, I haven't turned on my Xbox in probably almost a year. But I'm gonna get back into it and maybe start doing some game reviews and some game commentary. You know, play some games while I'm doing commentary. But thanks for watching. You guys go have a good day. Bye.